This is the 5th of December. It is 8:09. And here is my thought. So, I was thinking about how a lot of people will say that I can be moral without God, therefore that is evidence that I do not need God to exist in order for me to be moral. I don't have to have... Belief in God does not... is not evidence. Belief in God is not evidence. Not evidence. It's not correlative to being more moral. I can absolutely be a moral being and yet not be religious. Therefore, God does not exist. That's kind of the way the argument goes. Is that if I don't need belief in God, or I don't need thoughts or thinkings about God in order to be moral, that's supposedly a blow against the moral argument for God. However, that is one argument, but I don't think that really incorporates everything. It seems to be a bit too simple. Not to be disparaging, but I believe it's what Lewis calls as a boy's philosophy. And the reason why I say that is because the inference to the best explanation would say, if God, the greatest possible being, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present, all-loving, if he were to create a world wherein there was a moral absolute, there is a right and wrong, then he would make that apparent to everyone, not just those who believe in him. See, there's this understanding that atheism has, naturalism has, that says that you have, in order to be, that Christians believe in order to be moral, you have to be Christian. And I don't know any Christians, and I have not read any Christian actual teachings that say that in order to be moral, that you need to be a Christian. What it does say is, as Paul says, that once you know the law, once you know things are wrong, wow, man, it really, really humbles you and brings you to a place of repentance. But he also says that if you don't have the law, you become a law unto yourself. Now, the relativists are going, come on, Paul, preach that. Yes, but Paul says, and when you offend yourself, it's a sin. When you create an ethic and you set the parameters and then you violate that parameter, yeah, that's a sin. And what propitiation do you have for that sin? What scapegoat, what ransom is there to be paid for your misgivings and your misdeeds? You get to choose your own ethics, and you set them into a place wherein you're going to fail. Sidebar, there's nowhere wherever you set the ethic, you're going to fail. Even if you say, I don't care, there are no ethics, it's all hedonism. Invariably, you will create an ethic inside of hedonism that says, well, rape's wrong. Well, no, you said hedonism. Well, no, it has to be consensual. Oh, wait a second. Now you're setting up ethical boundaries. And that is totally against your ethic of not having ethics. So you see, it all falls apart. And so this understanding that having ethics or having moralism without God is evidence of God's absence. Look, I'm moral. I don't need God. But if God was a good God, he would give you the abilities and the tools, a conscience, as it were, to help guide you and show you things are moral. You know, I'm a father. Even if my kids hate me, I'm going to love them. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to clothe them. I'm going to feed them. I'm going to teach them morality. I'm going to show them where they're right and wrong. I'm going to continue to love them despite their opinion about me. Because they're my children. Because I love them. And because I know right now they don't know better. But I'm still going to continue to do that. The Bible tells us in the Old Testament, I believe it might be in Ezekiel somewhere, not Ezekiel, but in Ecclesiastes. This is also in the New Testament. I just remember reading the scripture. I need to look it up. But it rains on the just and the unjust. That this world is full of grace, it's full of imagination, it's full of reason, and anyone can use the things on this earth in whatever manner they see fit. They can use those things. When you use them correctly, you come to correct results. When you use math correctly, you come to the correct solution. When you use math incorrectly, you come to the incorrect solution. Morality is the same way. There is no thriving societies that we have now or in history that don't have a similar ethic. And so if I have a similar ethic to someone who is not a Christian, maybe the fact is that there's a God who has given us all a similar understanding of morality, and therefore we come to the same solution, like 2 plus 2. Or that gravity exists. I drop something and the gravitational pull pulls. Excuse me. Matter is attracted to matter. Or I look at the laws of physics. I look at these laws, and when I use them correctly, I come to correct solutions. Morality is more like that. And so when I have this morality, I can come to the conclusion that things are right and wrong. C.S. Lewis starts out Mere Christianity by saying quarreling. Quarreling is evidence that there is an objective right or wrong, else we wouldn't quarrel so much. But it's obvious when we quarrel that we are trying to convince someone that they are wrong and prove that we are right. That's what quarreling is. And inside of that, maybe the fact that why you're quarreling is because you have an understanding of a moral absolute, a moral objective truth. Now you can say, well, not all societies hold the same moral standards, and you would be incorrect. All thriving societies hold the same moral standards. They just define things differently. Lewis says in Mere Christianity that a person who doesn't believe there are mice in his house is not morally superior by not setting out mousetraps, like saying, well, I'm not going to set out mousetraps because I think it's immoral to kill rats. If you don't think there are any rats in your house, then you're not more moral by setting out rat traps. You've just redefined some terms, right? So every thriving society believes that it's wrong to kill innocent people. It's wrong to murder people. That's the killing of innocent people. Every society believes that. Now, where societies differ is in the defining the parameters of who qualify as innocent. But once you nail down a qualification of innocence, then the parameters are exactly the same. It's the same thing if you say that there's the old line that torturing babies for fun is immoral. That's true in any culture. Torturing innocent children for fun, innocent babies for fun, is morally appalling. It's wrong in every thriving culture. Why? Well, because they're innocent and they don't deserve that. There's a sense of justice and fairness. Now, what is decided by culture is who falls into the parameters of children or babies. So if you don't think that a fetus is a baby, then you feel that you have the right to torture that fetus and kill it because you don't think it's a baby. You don't think it's an innocent life. However, if society deems that a fetus is a child, it is a baby, it is a life, then the torturing and taking of that life is morally wrong. So there is no difference of morality, it's simply difference of parameters. And one of those parameters is more right than the other. That's why there's quarreling. 3 plus 2 equals 5. Some people may say, no, I think it's 4. Some may say it's 6. But the closer you get to the correct, there is a correct answer, the closer you get to that correct answer is the closer you will be to getting to the right response to whatever stimuli is going on in your environment, making the right choice. That's going to be the right choice given to you by God. Because you have a conscience, you have the ability to reason and think. It makes sense that you have the ability to reason and think and have morality because there's an all-loving God who's omniscient, who is giving you that ability to infer that the reason why you can even come to an understanding of right and wrong, and everyone has an understanding of right and wrong. There's no person who we consider sane, consider in their correct mind, who doesn't say there's a right and wrong. Even people who are out of their mind still operate under the understandings of right and wrong. Even if they're delusional, they still operate in a judgmental scale of right and wrong, better or worse. And it makes sense that if everyone can come to this conclusion that there actually is a right and wrong, and there is a moral law, and if there is a moral lawgiver, as Ravi Zacharias says, then if there's a moral law, then there is a moral lawgiver. And if there's a moral lawgiver, then there's someone who transcends us. And therefore, that transcendent person would be who we call God. And he has given us this law. And we use our conscience to judge right and wrong every single day. And it makes more sense of that than to say, well, because a Christian and a non-Christian can both be moral, therefore God doesn't exist because the atheist doesn't have God. No, not that the atheist doesn't have God. It's that the atheist chooses to disbelieve that there is a God, even though there's sufficient evidence to say that he does exist, or that he could exist, that it is logically possible that he exists. It's not logically impossible that he exists. It's logically possible that he exists. And if he exists, then he exists necessarily. And if he exists necessarily, he exists in all worlds. And if he exists in all worlds, he exists in this world. And knowing that, the inference can be made that logic and morality are good indicators that God does exist. And it's not indicators that he doesn't exist. It actually leans to the fact that he does exist, because think about this. If there is no mechanism, there's no agency behind this, it's all mechanism, then how could an atheist come to a moral conclusion the same as a Christian? And we're talking about over millennia. It's been the same. Morality has not evolved since the beginning of history. It is wrong to take innocent lives. It is wrong to torture children for fun. It is wrong to rape, plunder, steal, lie. It is wrong to disobey your parents. Those things have held true for at least the last 3,500 years. It's been the exact same morality. There's been no progression of morality. See, here's the thing. Progression of morality would be, so people say, well, homosexuality and transgenderism and all, these are all moral progressions. They're not. They're lateral progressions. Well, gay marriage, that's a win for social progressivism. It's not. It's not progressive. You just changed the definition of marriage. You didn't change the morality of it. You just changed the definition of who was included in the marriage. That's not progressive. That's just changing of definitions. Moral progression would be to say marriage is wrong, and to be married is a sin. or to be married is an incorrect way. We should never be married. We should just go and sleep with whoever we want to sleep with, and there should be no commitment to anyone. That commitment to people, monogamy is actually incorrect. The monogamy is the wrong thing. It should be open season. The rape should be okay. You shouldn't need consensual agreement to engage in sex. It should be rape. It should be lust-filled, amorous trysts, as opposed to monogamous, committed, consensual relationships and cohabitation. It should be the wild, wild west relationally. That would be moral progression, but the problem is with moral progression, you can't thrive. There is no thriving with that moral progression. To say that lying is the moral the moral gold standard, and that actually telling the truth is actually wrong. That would be morally progressive, but society and even human life could not thrive under the notion that we're trying to get to a culture where no one tells the truth. That is actually the thing everyone wants. That's the moral right, is to lie. And the moral wrong is to tell the truth. That's moral progressivism, and that doesn't work. And so what we call moral progressivism is simply redefining within the bounds of morality what we think morality should be shaped around. Again, I've given you examples of that. Marriage, we change the definition of what marriage includes, not what marriage is. Innocent life, we've changed the parameters of who qualifies for innocent life. We haven't been morally progressive. To be morally progressive when it comes to murder, it would say it's wrong to murder innocent lives. The moral progressive of that, the progression of that would be say it is wrong to keep innocent people alive. It is correct to murder innocent people. That is the right thing, is for you to go out and murder innocent people. That is being morally progressive. And it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. What would make more sense? See, we should have a whole gambit of if this is mechanism only, if this is just naturalism, then there should be people who say absolutely murdering the innocent is correct. And it shouldn't just be one or two people. It shouldn't be the outliers. It should be entire races of people saying that. But why isn't that true? Because those races wouldn't exist. There should be people born every day going, it is right to murder. It is right to murder. But that is something that is either come through something that where we know there's an abnormality in the brain, or there is brokenness in the home, there is brokenness in the relationships, there is psychological damage to this person, either physically in their abnormal brain or through their human experience. The abnormality of a relationship. See people, there is something called, I think Aristotle calls it the golden mean. There is balance. There is an optimal stasis for every living atom, every subatomic particle. There is an optimal stasis. And that optimal stasis is also seen in the things that are metaphysical, or it's not metaphysical. I guess you would call it consciousness. I believe consciousness is still metaphysical. That our conscious, there is relationally, even the things that are invisible to the physical materials that have become a part of the human experience. The human experience has a certain optimal stasis, and when that stasis is metastasized incorrectly, and it begins to have free radicals, and it begins to break down, and there's some sort of abnormality in there that creates dissidence in the mind or fracturedness in the relationship. When we have those things, then the person begins to define things incorrectly, and they begin to get 2 + 2 is 12. And they begin to get really off. Or 2 + 2 equals Z. 2 + 2 equals hamburger. Right? They begin to get really, really off. And a society that says 2 + 2 is a hamburger will not thrive, because you can't build a system around that. And so it seems to me that the best possible solution for the fact that morality exists would in fact be that there is an all-loving, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God, a designer who created us with the ability to have morality and actually gave us that morality, even if he knew we were going to reject him, and that our rejection or acceptance of him is not indicative of how moral we are or how moral we can become. Our moral capacity is not based on our belief in him. The Bible says that even if we deny God, he doesn't deny us because he cannot deny himself. We are his creation. We are his creatures. And we live in his world. I tell my kids all the time, every molecule is held together by his will and his imagination and his creative authority and power. And it makes sense that he makes that grace available and that moral those moral tendencies and that morality, he makes it available to everyone, regardless of their feelings towards him. That would be an all-loving God, to give you the gift of morality and to be able to use your conscience, to have the capacity to engage in the correct understandings, not only of math, but of morality, even if you blatantly disregard and express contempt for him. He still says, you're my creation, and I'm still letting you have this gift. To me, that is an inference to the best explanation on why there is objective morality. Read Abolition of Man for further proof that Lewis comes to the conclusion that every society can come to the understanding that there are moral absolutes. That's what Abolition of Man is about. The other thing Abolition of Man is about, really quickly, is be careful how you learn. It shapes who you become. All right, that's all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that little thought I had. Thanks so much for listening. See you later.